Okay, story. When I graduated high school, I took a graduation trip, and my best friend Johnny Zale and I, after I graduated, we loaded up the pickup, and we had like sideboards on the pickup, and we had a refrigerator box in the back we had tied down, and we headed out, from Hot Springs, Arkansas, and we travel down to the Gulf or whatever. Uh, and we come in, I don't know, it's somewhere around Beaumont, and we drive down the coast, and we get up to a ferry that goes across to Galveston from High Island, and I have 5 gallons of gas, in a can, because I wanted to be sure to have extra gas, and they would let me take it on the ferry. So they said, well, I said, well, can I pour it out? And they said, no, you can't pour it out. You can just leave it there. So I'm sure they stole my gas can. Anyways, we go across the ferry and we see some dolphins, which is pretty cool. And we drive on down the coast to I think it was called Surfside at Freeport. We sleep on the beach at Freeport for a couple of days. Not as much fun as you think, because when you play in the ocean, and get salt all over you, and you lay on the sand and you have sand all over you, and then you try to sleep. It just is not much fun. The beach was really cool because it was like a full moon that had come up and kind of gone across, and the waves and whatever. But sleeping was just absolutely miserable. The next morning we get up and we run across a couple of gals about our age, and they had boyfriends we didn't know about, but they had boyfriends. But they let us use a shower under. They had rented it was like a house up on stilts, and there was like a fresh water, so we could get the salt and sand off of us before we went on. So we take off and we continue to drive toward Mexico. So I used to, live in Del Rio, and Acuna is across the border. So we, we go over to Mexico. So I won't drive over into Mexico. There's too many things that can happen. Um, I remember growing up there that tourists would come down, and in Acuna, the Mexicans had a car. And in Mexico, if you were in an accident and you were not Mexican, you were at fault. You were in heap of trouble. And they had a donkey, and they would pull this car up to the top of a hill right where the bridge came over, and then they'd find somebody coming on vacation or whatever, and they'd drive their car over, and they would roll the car down the hill. It didn't have a motor in it, and they would hit whoever was coming over. They didn't have to hit it very hard, but they'd see if they could extract some money out of them. And then they would take the car and attach a donkey to it and pull it back up to the top of the hill, and we'll wait for the next one. It's kind of a little business they had going on. And Mexico was really cool at that time. It was like a fiesta, especially at night all the time. It was just all these shops that had, handmade stuff and really cool food. And I remember Johnny, one of the things that was really shocking to me, and the Mexicans would take a goat skull and bake it in the fire, and they would take it out and take a little hammer and break the skull open and eat the brains out of the skull. And I remember him saying, "You're not brave enough to try that." And I remember telling him, I said, "You know something? You're right." It may have tasted great, but it was just kind of, my 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 culture shock a little bit. So anyways, we go around Mexico, and he's wearing a T-shirt that says Ouachita Baptist University. And we pass these Mexican, younger people, and they point and just laugh out loud. And finally, this Mexican, about our age, comes up. He says, "Do you know what that says on your shirt?" And said, "Well, that's where he went to college, Ouachita Baptist College." He said, "In Spanish, it's Washita, and that means little shit." So I teased him for the rest of his days about attending Little Shit University. Anyways, we're walking back across the border, and he'd bought this huge sombrero. This thing was like 4 foot. I mean, look like a cartoon character. Johnny kind of looks Spanish. His mother was Mexican. His dad was Anglo. And so anyways, we come walking back across the border, and he's behind me because he's carrying all the junk he bought, and and I had a little bit. And the border guard, he said, "You an American citizen?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he points and looks at Johnny, coming up behind me. He said, "What about him?" And I said, "Would any self-respecting Mexican try to cross the border wearing that hat?" He laughed and waved us through. And then we drove back across Texas. We stopped in Abilene and visited the step cousins or whatever. And that was, we actually spent the night there. That was eye-opening for Johnny. And then we went out and visited Dana and Melanie Sue that I grew up with. I'll probably tell a story about the pig farm they grew up on and, how they ended up. And anyways, we had a great time, with them. And then we take off and we go to through Dallas-Fort Worth. And we stop at Six Flags and go to Six Flags. And had a good time at Six Flags. I was never big on the stuff that makes you want to throw up. Johnny thought things were great. But anyways, and we head home. Kind of like Bill and Ted's Great Adventure, kind of, sort of, not really. Have a good one.